Thank you for joining our free Gaia Plus session. We're honored to share this moment of transformation with you. To continue your journey and access the full event, plus hundreds of exclusive workshops, documentaries, and original series, join the Gaia Plus community today. Expand your consciousness. Gaia presents Gaiasphere Event Center, Dr. Ibrahim Karim, BioGeometry.
Hello, hello everybody. Hello. Thank you very much. What a pleasure being with you here. It's worth coming all the way from Egypt to be with you, you know. Yes. Well, before we start, I want to tell you something. Yesterday evening, we came back here for a rehearsal. And then I was really impressed by the whole Gaia team, how the professional they were, you know. We revised the sound, we revised the slides, it was so professional, even where to stand, where to go, don't move that, the light. And the nicest thing about all of that is that they knew I would be in jet lag in the afternoon. So they had my chair there, and then my favorite tea, Earl Grey. You know, Earl Grey is one of the healthiest teas because it has bergamot and tea. So they have a cup of Earl Grey for me like that. So whenever I get sleepy, I don't just sleepwalk here. Yeah, I take a sip of Earl Grey. So it's really, we must thank this whole team who made it happen. They're great people here in the Gaia, although you don't see them, you don't know who's doing what. But I was very impressed with their work. So I thank them really for what they're doing. Now, I was made aware that I'm just not lecturing to 300 persons sitting here, but that Gaia has a whole network and that there are 5,000 people watching us. So I'm speaking to you here, but at the same time, I'm speaking to 5,000 people. I'm acknowledging them, so I greet them, the ones out there. And the ones out there, they see us, you know, but I keep my eye on them. Huh? I see them too. Yeah, so watch out what you do in front of your screen out there, because I'm watching you. Yeah, not only you, them too, huh? Okay, so we are going to give a small idea about my background, because not everybody knows where I come from or what I do. And so I'll tell you a bit. The clicker is a bit slow here, but what you're hearing now is a music called the Sirius Odyssey. This music was composed by Omar Rafat, my son-in-law, who's in the back with my grandson. And it's a piece of music. I mean, he's a musician, a composer, and I drove him crazy while doing this. I pity him really for here, because I would first tell him we need a certain rhythm, and the intervals in that rhythm should be in such a way that we enter into resonance with the planet Sirius. And for him to get that done, I said, no, move it this way, the proportion back and front, and he gets crazy. I mean, he doesn't, no, not that. So until we got the basic rhythm that you see here, that ta, this is now in resonance with Sirius. And then I tell him, okay, now let's take every organ of the body and put something in the music to harmonize it. And so I had them do this and do that and do that. And then, okay, there is electromagnetic radiation in the room, so the electromagnetic says we should put something in the music to for that. And then for the environment and for the plants in the room. And for, so I kept doing that with him, it's good he's my son-in-law. So he has to obey and do it. Until he really did it, and we came out with a very, very nice piece of music, the one you're hearing now. The nice thing about it is if you take the CD and put it playing face up on the table, it will still harmonize the space and do its work even without being played. So I got to know that because we had done something that's called a CD before that called silent sound. Silent sound, what I did was, since biogeometry has to do with the energy of geometrical shapes, well, if it's real, if geometrical shapes have an energetic effect, then why can't we record that effect? So I went to a studio in Holland, I put shapes in the studio and started recording, and then I'd use other shapes, and then I would record certain postures, and then I would record even my thoughts. I do think of different things and I wanted to see, can all these things be recorded? Can quality sort of piggyback on the recording? So, but quality is not audible, but it should. And we came out with a CD with 19 tracks called The Serious Odyssey. And in Holland, we found that when we put that on the table playing face up, for example, cows were healed, plants became better. So they started testing them at the University of Wageningen in the Parasite Center, Parasite Research Center, putting those CDs on the trees, in the plants, in the pastures. So those CDs are based on a real effect that really you can have subtle energy effects recorded to take with you. So I can, for example, come into a room, put shapes and all that, harmonize the whole room, record it, and just take the CD with me when I travel. So, okay, now we're, go ahead. Now, we desperately need a holistic scientific paradigm. Why do we need to change our paradigm? Because we are moving more and more into left brain perception. We're moving more and more into the analytical world as we get more clever in our everyday things of analyzing things in science and all that. We get pulled away from the environment. We get pulled away from our subconscious. It doesn't speak to us as easily as it used to do before. So when this happens, we start looking at all the problems that are happening here. First of all our technology, modern technology, is becoming harmful. So how can we have a civilization that is harmful? Because that civilization doesn't acknowledge the invisible background. So we need a new paradigm. Did the great ancient civilizations have a different paradigm than ours? Surely. So we need to change. So we desperately need to change course. So I'll give you a bit about myself before I go on. So I lived in Switzerland for many years in the 50s and early 60s. I studied at the Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. I studied architecture and town planning. And from there, I lived for some time there before going to Egypt. In Egypt, I occupied several positions. I was consultant to Ministry of Health, then Ministry of Culture and Antiquities, then some years with the Ministry of Tourism, where I planned tourism in Egypt, and then ended with the Ministry of Scientific Research, where I had the opportunity to do a lot of work in biogeometry in the laboratories of the National Research Center. So that was when I went to Egypt. Now let's go back to Switzerland here. And BG3 is something that you will hear a lot. What is BG3? It looks here, if you look at it, it's like a doorway, it's like a vortex. BG3 is the energy of the center. If you draw a circle and you look for the center of the circle, you say, here's the dot, this is the center. Yeah, but if you enlarge it, it becomes a circle. So it's not a center, it's a circle, so it has a center. You draw the center, enlarge it again. So the center doesn't have coordinates in time and space. The center is actually a doorway, a vortex, a multidimensional vortex. So the centering energy comes from a higher dimension, and it is the centering principle in all creation. We call it BG3 in biogeometry because the first ways of measuring it, we used 3 different components to be able to measure it. You can't use the components to produce it, but just to measure the center, because the center now is not in time and space. So the center is something that is beyond time and space. It has no coordinates, but you can use some qualities to connect with it. And that this quality, the centering quality, we use the term BG3, because the first time we connected with 3 qualities to it. But there are other methods. So,
have you ever stepped into nature and just felt better?
A bit
like your whole being.
A walk through nature, something
and finally relaxed.
Gaia was
or
so
maybe you've
gracious
heard
to
a piece of
prepare
music
for us,
that seemed to melt your
connecting
stress
us
away,
back to nature.
almost like magic. According to Dr. Karim's BioGeometry, that's no accident. Our world is alive with hidden energies, subtle forces we can't always see, but we definitely feel. Time isn't just a ticking clock. It's a creative cosmic heartbeat, sending out pulses that shape reality. At the center of every pulse is a unique balancing energy called BG3. Think of BG3 like the calm eye of a storm, or the still center of a spinning wheel, a harmonizing force that brings balance to the chaos around it. While the world swirls in chaos, BG3 holds the peace, the balance. Biogeometry teaches us how to bring this powerful energy into our everyday lives, using shapes, colors, sounds, and design to tune our spaces to this invisible frequency of harmony. Because here's the truth: 98% of reality exists beyond what we can see or touch. And when we learn to work with that hidden energy, life feels smoother, more vibrant, and a whole lot more.
I think this guy explains it better than me, huh? Okay, so what is exactly the word biogeometry? Geo means earth. Metry means measurement. So the ancient Egyptians used to survey the land every year after the flood in order to redefine the parcels for the farmers. So they needed some form of geometry, and they used a rope with 3 segments, and then 4 segments and 5 segments that got later known as the Pythagorean triangle. And they use that with 3 sticks. If you put them, you get a 90-degree angle, and then you can actually give everybody his piece of land from the Nile backwards without losing anything or increasing anything. So this was how geometry started, measuring the earth. Now, we want to go beyond that. We want to measure life force. Because although modern science does not acknowledge something called life force, they could tell you the background is a void or the background, but life force, if you think of it, is the fuel that runs 99.99% of creation. What moves the planets around the sun? What keeps them there from falling? What makes my hand move? What makes us grow? What life force is there So if you think about it, it is the most prevalent fuel in the universe, but you can't say fuel or energy in the way you understand our energies, electricity or magnetism and all that, or combustion, because that energy is alive. Life force is alive, it thinks. So imagine you're filling your gas tank, and then you can speak to the fuel going in there. You have an hi there, how are you enjoying your drive? Yeah, life force is the animator, but it's a living animator. So if I look at it that way, if energy, this life force energy, is the main thing everywhere, so it does not exist in our sensory perception. It fuels our sensory perception. It makes our senses work. So we have to go look for it in the other dimension, in the unsensory or extrasensory dimension. So life force is something that exists, and it is what creates the sensory dimension. So if we want to create a civilization like the ancient Egyptians, like the great civilization of the world, if we have enough wisdom, what fuel would we choose for our civilization? Life force. We become one with nature. So creation becomes our partner. It creates. So that's why we thought we want to build a science of life force. So that's the bio part. So I took the bio part, stuck it to geometry. I have the right to do that. I'm an architect, so yeah, if you're not an architect, so take hands off geometry, but I can just stick it there. So biogeometry started. So to give you an example, what life force can do. Just an example. Many years ago, there was a town in Switzerland called Hemberg, and they suffered from electromagnetic stress. From mobile towers were put there. All of a sudden, the births of the cows started having problems. The milk production became less, so their economy crumbled. Their migrating birds left the area, plus all sorts of health problems, like high blood pressure, things that all of you have in a modern life, but for them, people, it was new. Epilepsy was on the increase and things like that. So the Swiss government told me, come and find a solution to the problem, but without taking away all modern technology. So I told them, this is new, because, well, I have a doctor's degree from Switzerland, from their university. So I told, look, I'm one of you guys, one of their scientists. Can you change the effect while keeping the cause? It's not logical. So why are you asking me to do things that are not logical? So they told me, Ibrahim, don't play with us. We know you can go and do it. Because the people there are revolting. They wanted to dynamite all the mobile towers. So we went and put a BioGeometry solution. We put some geometrical shapes on the mobile antennas to carry the energy over, to spread it through the mobile communication, so I don't have to use 1,000 shapes. I can big bank them on electromagnetic radiation. And what happened? They called it the miracle of Hemberg. See, these are the geometrical shapes. I didn't fix them on the antenna, the mobile antenna itself, because I don't want to create problems, you know. My work was done with the engineers of Swisscom, with the mobile communication. So I always stayed 20 centimeters from the antenna, aiming those shapes on it. Some were made of wood, some of plexiglass. The first ones were made of wood, and with time and humidity, they started changing shape, so we used the plexiglass ones. These are the results. If you look at the quality of life, the quality of life is usually measured through symptoms, irrelevant of the problem. if you have large symptoms, you have a bad quality of life. Whether they come from your stomach or your brain or your head or your lungs, doesn't mean your quality of life is affected. So here, the doctors come, they take all the medical analysis of the whole region, they group into severity. They put them together, how much is no symptom, mild symptom, moderate symptom, severe symptom. And you see here, on the left, is the normal pattern of a normal society. If we look at any society here, you'll find that today, severe symptoms are most prevalent in society. When we put our solution, things reversed. You see in the second one on the right, the free of symptoms went up. Actually, 60% of symptoms disappeared. So you ask yourself, if 60% of my symptoms can disappear through an environmental science like biogeometry, then the environment must be causing those symptoms. And actually, chronic diseases that we can't handle today, but we manage only, we manage because we don't find the cause in the body, because the cause is out there. So this is showing you, just in the beginning, before we go ahead, what life force can do. It can do miracles. And that's what it did in Hemberg in Switzerland. Here, the same graphs on the head area. The top one shows the physical aspects of the head, physical problems in the head. The lower one, emotional, mental problems. And you see the biggest effect is on the emotional, mental side. It changes. The mayor came and told me at the end, he thanked me and he said, I'm not going to speak about all the medical things that happen, the symptoms and all like that everybody's making a hype of. No, I'm a politician, so I thank you for bringing peace to my region. Because now everybody was friendly. No aggression between people. So biogeometry here seems to work a lot on the emotional, mental plane. And then newspapers came everywhere. Some people thought it can't be true, you know. Can't be true what this guy's doing. So at the end they said, well, they're introducing him to us as a doctor from the Federal Institute of Technology. They're Swiss scientists. But hey, this guy is Egyptian. So maybe he comes with something, you know, that we don't know. So they're saying, Karim aus dem Wunderland. That means Karim from the land of miracles. So, yeah, because they discovered, oh, if he's Egyptian, biogeometry could be just a front, you know. But I told them, no, it's a science, and we're teaching it. So this is a bit. And to show it's a science, today, of course, I'm not teaching as a undergraduate professor anymore, you know, with certain, I won't say age, with certain maturity. You know, I don't teach anymore, but what I do is I supervise any master's or doctor's degree at the university that in any field that has to do with subtle energy or biogeometry, they call me. Let's get the crazy guy who understands about this. He's the one who can supervise this doctor's degree. So that's what I'm doing lately. I keep doing that. I'm doing that for the past 25 years. And this is an example, for example, of such like this. A girl wanted to use a decorative strip with some biogeometry patterns from biosignatures in order to relieve depression without using drugs. So we said, okay, they said they'll test her solution on animals like lab rats or something, in order not to have autosuggestion. Because they said we might tell people we have a biogeometry solution and they'll get better just by hearing the name biogeometry. So we did it on rats who hadn't gone through our courses in biogeometry, you know. So here you see the normal level of serotonin in the blood in control rats is somewhere 70s, 80s, something like that. And then you depress them. I don't enter into how they depress the rats. Maybe they show them TV episodes or something. I don't know. But they depress them. And that's when they're depressed. You know, they're just falling back like that, totally depressed. And so what happens, they take blood samples again, and the serotonin drops to 30, 40. And as a test, you know, you don't ask the rat at the end with the biogeometry solution, how do you feel? Is your depression gone? Are you happy? No. So we test the serotonin back again. And you see here with biosignatures, we have the highest level of success compared to all the drugs on the market. Here are 3 of the most used drugs. We get here a very good result with BioGeometry. So this is to give you an idea what type of research those people are doing in their PhD programs. Now, this is our BioGeometry Center in Cairo. So you're all, I'm showing it to you to tempt you to come and visit me. So maybe next time, instead of me coming, maybe you come and visit me there. You're all welcome.
I would like to do that.
Please, yes, please. I'd like to have you all there. And this villa, that's the headquarters of our work. The other stuff is in another building. But this one is an iconic villa. If you look at it like that, it's from the beginning of the era of modern architecture. Modern architecture in Europe, you have here, for example, in America, Frank Lloyd Wright, like the Waterfall House. In Europe, you had Corbusier and people like that. And my father was from that generation of the pioneers of modern architecture. So he built that house, which is an iconic house for modern architecture in the Middle East. Today, it's the iconic center of modern architecture, but at the same time, it's housing biogeometry. So this is a picture of my father, and he's the pioneer of modern architecture in the Middle East. We had, he was very famous. We had offices over all the Middle East. We planned all the capitals of the Middle East and all that. But then, years later, he was nationalized with the revolution came, and we lost a large part of our offices. But maybe it was a good thing. It gave me more time to concentrate on biogeometry and still do architecture. So we still have the office, and we're doing architecture. So that's part of where I come from. And here, I'll show you something interesting. In Egypt, you know, we like writing scrolls of our genealogy. You know, the dynasties, the ancient dynasties, like the priest Manetone, having the king lists or dynasties going back 50,000 years. Well, I found a scroll also in my family showing my lineage, but it didn't go back 50,000 years. The scroll I have goes back 1,400 years. So I put picture. This is the cover, the first part of the scroll, like cover. It's a long scroll that you open like this, and this is the first page of the scroll, and this is the last page, title, beginning, and end, of this bloodline of this lineage that I hope I'm serving it the way I should, because it's a very, it's a lineage of very special adepts with very interesting stories, and so that's the bloodline in a way. But that's for another day. It's a story for another day. So the book Hidden Reality is a book that deals with the physics of quality, because we started with some simple books first to introduce the thing. We didn't go into the full physics, but at the end, after some years, people told me, you know, you can't keep the physics itself, the knowledge, with you, and just give us applications and things. because, I mean, you can't take it with you where you're going. So you have to put it on paper, you know. So I wrote this book, The BioGeometry Physics of Quality, what's in there. I just put it out there. And that's the book that we have here. Now, an interesting thing happened with this book. You see this L shape is one of the shapes in biogeometry. It's a very powerful shape. But what's it doing here? We were erecting a lab, a water research lab, with my friend from Austria, George Gaup. And I work with George Gaup, and I work a lot with Emoto, was a good friend of mine, and we used to work for many years together. He used to come to Egypt. So I have this group of colleagues we work together. And George was setting up our lab in Egypt. So he was telling me, here, I've set up the microscope. And he said, OK, we can take a drop of water, put it in there, put the camera up there, increase it to 40,000 times, and then take a picture. And then you will find the structure inside the water. So I said, OK, let's try it. So then all of a sudden we do it. And he said, what's happening? The L comes out. But how can the L come out in the water? So he said, the water must know something about us. Can the water be reading our subconscious? And it's like reading our science, or telling us, well, we are all primordial water. You're just a coagulated aspect, a materialized aspect of primordial water, just because you have a sensory perception. But if you forget about your sensory perception, about your sense of touch, you're there with me. We're all the same. So it's very strange how this appears, because we have many, many pictures of that. Usually, when we take pictures of water drops, and you look at it, you find as if somebody's taking pictures in a forest, in nature. You wouldn't say it's a water drop. You say, this is somebody walking in nature. I tell them, no, it's a water drop. So it seems that the archetypal images of nature exist in a water drop. When you increase it, you have it there. But natural shapes, but can it read biogeometry? So it did. Yeah. So maybe the water's telling me, look, I already know what you know, you know. You didn't get it from anywhere, because I'm watching you. The water is saying, I'm watching you. You have water inside you, and the water inside you is part of me. So remember, you can't hide anything from me. So here we want to shift into this new paradigm for the future. How do we shift into it? We have to go beyond the sensory prison. Because, you know, our reality is really our senses, 5 senses. They work in the range of, let's say, 1 or 2% of reality only. The rest is there. Absolute reality is not visible to us. So out of the information we get from the 2%, our brain starts constructing a reality using linear time-space. So our brain sort of creates linear time-space, because linear time-space doesn't exist. Time-space is multidimensional. But the brain is creating one aspect of multidimensionality as part of the sensory perception, and we get a linear time-space. We get information has to be personified, otherwise we can't perceive it. In the subconscious or the unconscious, everything is part of a whole thing. So the components are part of a universal unity. Now in the left brain, you don't have the universal unity. You have personification of components, and you can go more details and more details. So that's why you have the quantifying aspect here. So we live in a dimension because we only have the linear aspect. There are new laws here that didn't exist in multidimensionality. So the laws of this dimension don't exist. You won't take them with you. All your science will crumble. You don't count anything with. Why? Because linear means past and future. That wouldn't exist if you don't have linear. Cause and effect. Your weight. On the other side, you won't have weight because it's something that has to do with linearity. So you create a linear world. Even what you think is material, it's only material because you have a sense of touch. If I lose my sense of touch, my hand will go through things and there wouldn't be material. So I'm creating a material world that I'm projecting and living in. That's the material world. But it's a very small aspect of reality. And we must know that the sensory perception of every species is a bit different. Your dog doesn't have the full sensory range that you have. It lacks it on one side, but it has more on another side. So the world of the animals would be slightly shifted from ours. They live here, but to them, somebody could be materially patting the dog on the other side, and we don't see it, but the dog sees it. So a virus will have its own sense, project its own sensory world. A bacteria will do that. So we have billions of superimposed material worlds. Each one is material to the sensory system of what is living in it. But actually, all of them are not material. So if we know that, we want to get out of this sensory perception. Why? Because this is a very temporary state. Nothing here can come with me. Everything here is temporary. So I want to know what I'm taking with me and how do I deal with it. And that's the science of BioGeometry. Life force is not here, it's on the other side. So we need a science, a crossover science. We need to go through the whole of multidimensionality using the BG3 quality. So we need to access that doorway. And the nice thing about biogeometry when it does that is that it is a practical science. When Pythagoras came to Egypt, he was the famous Greek philosopher and all that, and he came, I'm the great Pythagoras. He had a letter from the Pharaoh. Then he goes to the temples. I have come here so that you can teach me your temple sciences. So they tell him, sorry, Pitho, we have nothing to teach you. So he says, why are they treating me that way? He goes to the other temple. Sorry, Pitho, nothing to teach you. So in his dismay, he sits with the priest. I say, why are you treating me that way? Is it because I'm a foreigner? Because I'm Greek? You don't want to share your science? So the priest told him, no, it's because we have nothing to teach you. So he said, no, you're driving me crazy. He said, we are temples of experience. We are temples that will lead you to understand the excellence of action. Excellence of action is what all religions, what all beliefs and everything, what they are about. What's around it is nothing. It's just rituals leading you to it. So the rituals are means, but what you really need, the goal is excellence of action. So they start from the goal straight away. We are temples of experience. So biogeometry has to follow that. But why become a science of experience? Because the moment I start using words and teachings from any of the teachings I know, I'll be pulled too much into sensory perception. But if I stay abstract in abstract geometry, I'll be safe from being pulled too much into it. And then I can pull you to the other side. So now we want to recreate the paradigm of that 98%. There, all the laws here are not there anymore, like we said. No linear time, so our world falls apart. So let's go. This is something I wrote. Let's sit together. I might drive you crazy, but I'm taking you in nowhere. Walk with me into the night. Walk with me towards the light. Come into the darkness of the light. Lose yourself in the lightless light. So you see, because light, it's not the light that we have here. The light here is a sensory perception. But the lightless light is where we want to go. So this is just putting it in a sort of a poetic way like that. From time to time, I sit like that and something comes to me, so I write it. So now, see, that's the physics of quality, the practical science working in the 98%. Now, let's take it a step further. And things that come out of the central hole, they take their time, coming from that dimension to here. So don't worry, they'll come out. If they don't come out, we'll call them or we go in. Okay, here. Now, this is a bit, 98% is equal to 100%. Why? When we said our sensory perception is 2%, so the rest is 98%, we're speaking in linear time. We can't compare linear things to multidimensional things. So the 98 was a way of expressing it in linear. If you have 2, the rest is 98. But in reality, multidimensionally, the rest is everything. So that's the 100%. That's how we go into multidimensionality. That's it. Question mark. How can this be that? Now you know. I give you the answer before I put the question mark. Why do I make it easy on you? Okay. Now, question. What do I care about multidimensionality? What do I care? My perceived reality is here. Everything is here. Why do you want to take us through a hole into nothingness? We're very happy where we are. Well, let's look at it that way. For my world to exist, and for me to be able to have a material world, I need my senses. I need sense of touch, it becomes material. Sense of sight, I need sense of color, sense of sound. I need all the 5 senses to work together to create linear time and to create my world. But the brain, in order to do that, has to be alive. That brain cannot create this world. It has to be alive. That means before I become real, before the senses come out and give me my identity, before I can touch myself, the personification. Because in this sense, the senses give us a way of personifying things. Through personification always happens through association with my cultural database. So if I have never seen a human being before in my life, and you come into the room, I've only seen giraffes. So you'll all be different forms of giraffes to me, because I've never seen a human. I don't have in my database the shape of a human being. And then I come, and as we speak, I touch your neck. Oh, it's not that long, so he can't be really a giraffe. So all of a sudden, the neck shrinks with the body, and all of a sudden, the picture of a human being comes into my data bank. And then, if I see you next time, I'll know you're human beings. So it's the same, in some of the islands who had never seen planes, and the planes came, when the Japanese planes came to some of those islands and they came down, the people sat there and thought these were birds. And the plane would come down and they still think it's a bird. And then when the door opens and a human being comes out, all of a sudden, something changes and they start knowing it's not a bird anymore. Same thing happened when the Spanish Armada came to South America. They thought it was just clouds. So they sat there on the beach, not really protecting themselves for anything, not thinking an invader's coming. And only when the people come out of the ship, all of a sudden, it's those battleships. But so there is this personification principle that's very important, that what it does when it personifies something, it also separates it from the background. So it's not enough to know you're human beings. Okay, now I know you're human. Okay, I hope so. Huh? Okay, if anybody's not human, please raise your hand. Okay, so if you're human, you could be part of a big picture. Now, my personifying aspect separates you from the background, gives you a personification. So I identify things in my world, even my own body. I personify it, and this personification process makes our body. Now, all that, not even time and space, cannot exist before something sends energy to my brain. Now, who does that? The heart can send blood up with life force. This is where life force comes in. It sends it to the brain. My biological system has to be functioning, living, for blood to carry life force to the brain. But that means that my living reality, my identity, my brain, is only a secondary phase. The first phase is in the heart and is sending life force to create me. So I'm only a second phase. Okay, then what runs my heart? What runs my biological system? It can't be in this world. It can't be in this reality because this world doesn't exist yet. It's a precondition. So imagine it's the universe running your biological system, running your heart. It's not run at all by you. It's run by the universe. So this is a universal aspect. On the energy level, not on the physical level, you're a universal being. So why think what happens in the 98% or the other dimension? Well, you'd better start thinking about it because it's all of you coming from there. And then somebody will ask me a question. If what you say is true, then I should live forever. My biological functions should live forever. If they're run by the universe, why don't I live forever? Well, because when my senses are activated, I start being aware of my heartbeat, of my digestion. So I pull the physical, the materialized aspect, because materialization is a sensory thing. I pull the materialized aspect into time-space. So the physical parts of our body are now pulled into time-space. Now, you could say, okay, so now the energetic part is the pure, multidimensional aspect where all the organ functions exist, and the physical aspect of the organ is the container. Now, when the relationship between the container and the energetic content weakens, that's where I have some problems. So why don't I, from time to time, sort of activate more the energy, that inner energy of the 98% or the subconscious part, When I activate it, very easy. I go there. Once you go there, you activate that part, and healing comes. Why? Because that part is where life force is. Life force is healing. Where do you get it from? From the multidimensional part of yourself. And that's why we should actually start looking into the multidimensional world. Because remember here, to give you a metaphor, there is a sort of a permanent background that we call the primordial waters or primordial ocean. It's not water, because primordial waters, it's something that has all elements in it. It has humidity, it has fire, it has all that inside it. So it's a primordial medium thing. But we call it primordial water. No, that primordial medium is where all the archetypal or the perfect laws governing creation. The primordial medium is there. It's an intermediary state between divinity, zero and everything, and duality. So it's what governs duality. So here, the whole thing is how to connect or increase the resonance between the water content in my body, which is 70%. How, if I increase the resonance through resonance will go through a hierarchy of dimensions and sort of activate the water element in my body. So it is by activate, for example, if you find water running in the rocks, what we call the water of the rocks. This is still pure water, channels running 150 meters underground, and in their crossings, they sort of produce a vortex, push the water up, and you get a sacred well. Well, sacred well are perfectly connected to the primordial multidimensionality. That's why the healing comes out of them. That's why in those sacred wells, if you go there, you have this ultimate connectivity. So the whole thing is we have to access that in order to know the important thing here. Also, multidimensionality means that other part of me that I call, let's say, my immortal soul or something, because this identity I have is like a mask. I take a mask, I wear it for some time, and then it gets hot, I take it off. So the problem is you identify with the personality of your mask, and you forget who's wearing the mask until somebody forces it out of you, because your senses who create your identity, they will tell you, I created you. Your senses are going to tell you, I created you. So you have to serve me. Once I wrote a poem, me speaking to the senses, and my senses say, I created you. So I'm shocked. I'm saying, you can't create me. The Creator created me. How do you say you created me? So, think about it. Ibrahim, his personality and all this is my creation. I'm still getting confused and mad. I said, no, it can't be, it can't be. So I'll have to drop you off, leave you behind. I want to drop off this body, jump to the other side, and then get rid of you forever instead of all this nonsense you're saying about creating me. You can't create me. So I jump on the other side, but in the first intermediate dimensions there, it pops up again. Hey, I'm here. And then it takes a second death somehow for me to shed it aside. And so this is how the senses are. So the senses, since they've created you, they make you serve them. And when they make you serve them, they get you out of balance from the natural laws that are governing your organs. Because the natural laws there, like with an animal or something like that. He is a bit immune to the effect of senses than you are. But the senses would tell you, for example, eat more of that when the inner energetic balance needs less of that. So the senses, when they make you eat more of that, that's when decay happens to the material aspect and they pull you into time-space because they pull you out of the central balance. So we have to know how to live this, not dimension, like you say, if you say afterlife. Remember, I want to tell you something. Any information from reality that can be perceived, you cannot perceive it unless you translate it from a multidimensional existence to a linear dimension. So how do you translate it? First, you take the information. You squeeze parts of it into linear time. So all the parts that are not linear fall off. So you get a very small part in linear time. And then you take that part and take it, associate it with your database, with what's existing in your cultural database. And your cultural database creates, out of this part, creates the personification. So your personification is a culturally based translation. So everything you see in this life, it's okay, the personification, when you're dealing with things in your physical dimension, when you're living here. Perfect science, all that, personification is perfect. But when dealing with things that relate to the other side, you must know that what you know is only a limited cultural translation. So when you speak about, for example, life after death, when you speak about reincarnation, when you speak about Akashic records, when any one of those things that relate to the other side, you must know that your cultural translation is at work here. You don't have the full picture, because the full picture is multidimensional, has no time-space. So let's take, for example, life after death. Okay, here you can life after death and what I do here and what you do there and what happens there and all that, and the departed and I get sad and all this. But in reality, the other dimension has no time-space. So there's no before and there's no after. So why do you say after death? So this is like, imagine we spoke about the primordial ocean, where everything is. Then a leaf, small leaf, falls on the surface of the water. This is the mask. So you're a drop of water in that ocean. You see a leaf, you jump on it to see what's that. So once you're on the leaf, you're trapped by the beauty and the things you see in the leaf. You're admiring the color, you're admiring the shape, you're admiring that, and you forget about the ocean. So you're on the leaf, but you're a drop of water from the ocean, but you're on the leaf. Now, as it moves a bit, after some time, it will take enough water and then sink. And you're back in the ocean again. So you have to know that this sense reality is just this temporary floating of a tiny leaf on the real you. Because the drop is the ocean and the ocean is the drop. So once you're back in the ocean, the real you is that big. So now, let's look at that life and death. That means our permanent state dimension is the ocean. So I'm already there. I don't have to go to it after leaving my physical body. I'm just wearing a mask, but I'm not looking back. But I'm living in it. And those who left us never left us because I'm living in it, so they're with me all the time. But the problem is, I'm interested in the mask, I'm interested in the leaf, so I don't look at them. So they're sitting beside you, and they're with you all the time. But you don't see them because of your interest in the leaf. But when you sleep, part of you is always there with them all the time. You've never left, and they've never left, and your life is going there together, eternal life, where there's nothing. No sadness, nothing, no leaving, no coming, no before, no after. All this is a culturally based translation here, which does not exist. But unfortunately, because we live here, we have acknowledged this. When I don't see the physical body of a person, I don't know where he is. But it's not like that. It's not like that at all. So once we know that, we have to, now the science of biogeometry is a science of introducing the totality of multidimensional reality through the doorway, and this is the vortex that comes from the highest level of creation, this vortex coming down. And what do you get? You get an energy quality, not an energy quantity, an energy quality. It's a centering quality. Centering quality means it will correct the imbalance in any activity in your physical world. So what we're doing in biogeometry is it's not magic. I'm not the miraculous miracle maker from the temples of Egypt. No. It is just, in reality, you want to know what I really am? I'm a doorman. I open the door for BG3, put it in the solution, and balance occurs. So imagine the biggest honor that I receive in my life is not my PhD, is not my success in business, is not being called doctor or whatever. All that is nonsense. Yeah, my biggest honor is being the doorman. They appointed me that I have the key. I can open the door, let the light come out, and do the solution. And remember, I am not the one who's doing it. It's the light who's doing. So there is no reason to think that you are something because you know this, not because you can do those results, because you're not the one doing them. So go back to your humble self, understand that you're just the humble doorman, and appreciate the fact that you are given the possibility to, as a doorman, to look through the door from time to time. That's the biggest thing that can happen to us. So you see, this is why we use biogeometry to access that. Now, why are we using geometry? Why biogeometry? Why shape? First of all, because we saw that in sacred power spots, this vortex that happens in sacred power spots is due to underground water crossings. So that means there's an aspect of angles to it. So the moment I discovered that this quality was related to angles, and angles are quality, we know from a prism that angles are quality, they refract into colors qualities. So I said, hey, now the multidimensionality, if it has to do with angles, I'm an architect. It's falling right in my lap. Yeah, so now let's start a whole science in trying to understand what's happening through angles, through geometrical shapes. Because letters, music, nothing here that has to do with sensory perceptive, perceived through senses, can cross. As we go further, maybe at the end of the day or tomorrow, that even resonance cannot cross. Frequency cannot cross. There's another type of resonance that is completely irrelevant from frequency, not at all related to frequency that crosses. But frequency itself cannot cross because it has to do with linearity. So it cannot cross. So we have to start looking at if shapes can exist or have a way of, if shapes have a multidimensional reality to them, if shapes can create a multidimensional resonance to them irrelevant of frequency, then the language of shape is the language I can use to speak to the other side. Because also taking meaning out of shape will not pull me too much into sensory perception, thinking of things, doctrines, and all that. And that's the reason why many years ago, in the beginning, of course, I lived in Europe, in Egypt, and I have multiple cultures. And of course, I've studied so many sciences in all things. But then, at the end, in order to understand how the purity of the doorway, you have to push those away. So I don't explain, at the moment I explain things through any culture, any doctrine, I get pulled here. So the best way in biogeometry is to stay abstract. Whatever I'm doing, whatever, teach you to do things in a purely abstract way. That would be the way of crossing over to the other side. Now, we go to the hall again, the doorway, see? It's nice going through the doorway. Huh? That's what we just said. Okay? You know, I don't follow the slides. Slides follow me. Because I said it, the slide comes and says it. Yeah, I don't. Now, look at this. This is a very important thing because we're going to use practically later. Look for the soul in the shadow, where the physical appearance does not hide it. Because I cannot see your soul, your immortal soul, and your physical appearance. I'll only see your mortal soul. So how can I connect to your mortal soul? It doesn't exist in this visible dimension. It exists in somewhere in a shadowy dimension. And later on, as we go on, maybe tomorrow or at the end of the day, I'll show you how to use your shadow to go into the immortal soul through your shadow. So this is just a teaser here. This is good. I should leave you in front of it for some time because it gives you time to unwind. This is your training to be a doorman. Yeah, just stand in front of the door. They might choose you, you know. So, language of the unconscious is the quality of motion. So if motion has harmony in it, quality means not the motion itself, but motion, harmonious motion, creates shapes that can cross over. So one of the things that we do in this physical realm is to create perfect motion that translates into perfect shape that actually has a positive effect on the evolution of multidimensional reality. So we're here to play a role. We're not here just for nothing, you know. We're here, our goal, like I said, excellence of action. That's why we come here. Okay, now, let's see the 5,000 who are out there, the back there. Yeah, because it's like this being sensory perception, and you know, the good guys, I don't see the ones who are out there watching us, something like the extrasensory, it's that other world, you know, the multidimensional world out there. Yeah, and so it's like the same thing, you know. I have to be with you, but address them, so like being here and that other multidimensionality. So hello there in the collective unconscious up there, yeah. That's how I see you, because I don't see you, so I assume I place you in that thing. Now, you know, this sensory reality, when you live in it, you must take it serious, because that's your body, your whole existence, the laws, your car, your plane, everything is based on the laws of cause and effect, the laws of this sensory reality, so it becomes a very solid world that we live in. Okay, but that's the 2%. If you move into 98% and look at it, it's a temporary illusion. So every time you move out, you think only a fool would take an illusion seriously. Yes. So from time to time, when I'm out there, I'm enjoying it. Yes. So I come here. Do you think I take this physical reality? I have 1 foot there and 1 foot here, so I can really enjoy. And we're here, you know, you're stuck with me for 2 days, huh? Yeah, you're stuck with me. There's no way out. No way out. The only way out for you is through the door of multidimensionality. That's the only chance you get. Otherwise, you're stuck with me for 2 days. So remember, that's your only way out there. So now, let's look at time in this perceived reality. Let's say time here and time on the other side. What's the difference? Why am I so happy on the other side, enjoying laughing and everything? And then here, all of a sudden, I'm tense and things like that. Why is all that? Why do I have 2 persons in front? One is happy and one is tense. Now, perceived time, is it a friend or enemy or foe? If you look at time, time has taken all the nice things in my life, all the nice moments and all that. Time keeps taking them away. They don't last, so time keeps them away. So time is, are you an enemy or what? Why don't you leave the good moments here? Why don't you leave them with me? Why do you have to take them away? So then I think, but time answers. But remember, I also take the sad moments away. Okay, so you're not really a foe, but not really a friend. I mean, why don't you leave the good ones and take the sad ones, and then we'd be okay together, you know? But it takes both of them. Now, it takes everything in my life as I go along. But the day I close my eyes, I die. Where this linear time is sensory time. So the linear time will also die with me. So at that moment, the time before it completely dies out tells me, well, I'm at the end of my journey now. All the things I took from you all your life, I've held them in storage, and you can have them now because I'm off, you know. Okay, you can have them now, but you can't take them with you. So, but this is the way you perceive time. So linear time is always putting a stress on you. You lose the past, you can't have it again. You don't know the future, puts a stress on you. So this is how we interact with linear time. But then the clock in your hand or your watch is the blessing or a curse, because it takes you into complete linearity. You have to look, am I late? Am I doing this? I have to do that this time. So the clock is somehow putting a stress on you. We're living a stressful life based on the clock, you know. So, I mean, maybe one day they'll come out and build clocks in our heads. Yeah, so I don't have to think about clock ticks, tick, tick. And so this is because it pulls you into purely quantitative awareness. And that's what puts all the stress on you. Now, we have a possibility here of looking a bit differently at that. Let's say, how do I beat the clock? I want to beat it, you know. You don't have, you bought an expensive watch, you don't have to take your shoe and keep breaking that watch down because you want, that's not the way of beating it. So, yeah, you find a nicer way of beating it because you paid for it. So, now, bring power spots into your life because every person in his area, there is maybe a nice lake somewhere, is sacred water, or a spring, a sacred spring, or an old church. In all the old churches where you have the springs where they do baptism, things like that, start looking at those things in a different way. Don't look at those things in relationship to your belief. I mean, because the rituals around sacred waters, around all that, exist from the dawn of humanity, and even the animals were doing them. I mean, the birds would come in V formation, circulate around them, so, and continue. The animal would come to drink for healing. Another animal would come to die there, and all that. So they can't be related to any belief or religion because the animals have an innate relationship to nature. They don't have belief or religion. So go back to that pure interaction with nature. Take away everything you believe. So you find a church with a sacred well, irrelevant of your religion. Go there and drink from the sacred well. You find an ancient native sacred site. Don't think, I'm a Christian, why should I go and do the ritual on this? No. It's sacred energy. Go there. Forget about beliefs. Start interacting with the earth. The first rituals of humanity were actually when the first humans interacted with sacred power spots, they would start rituals of dance. They would just dance there, or do certain postures, or certain sounds, or certain things. What were they doing? They were becoming spokesmen of the earth. It wasn't them doing it. It was the earth, because we are bacteria in the body of the earth. So the earth was speaking through them, irrelevant of any belief. The animal does it without belief. So let us understand the pure energetic relationships with sacred power spots will take us into the vortex and will somehow, the clock, when the hands move, if you follow the hands, you have a problem. If you stand at the center, the hands, they can move, they won't move you. So one of the things is connecting to sacred power spots. The other, we are going to show you many activities will give you a shape that resonates with BG3. So we will, as we go through the next 2 days, we are going to do activities of how do we connect with BG3, how do we create BG3 here. I'll give you a small shape of a pendulum that is a scepter that radiates BG3. So if you want BG3, just take it and point it at yourself. You're in BG3. So there are easy, because my ways are the ways of an old, lazy Egyptian. You think I would go through a lot of contortions of things like that to open a chakra or to do all those things? You guys can do that. I just want to take one thing, tuck, it's open, the chakra, and it's done. Yeah. That's what a lazy Egyptian like me does.
Speak my language.
Yeah. So, rhythm, harmonious rhythm. So, let us say you're trapped in clock time, but if you start making any sport or music or dance or anything, when you first learn it, you're not into, there's no harmony yet. But then comes a moment when it just happens. You know, like when you drove your car for the first time. I have to shift, or maybe shift is my period, not yours. But I have to steer. I have to do this. I have to do this. If you keep doing that, you're learning how to drive. But after some time, it just happens. Your subconscious takes over. It has learned. And all of a sudden, you drive more harmoniously. You drive better. And you're enjoying it. And you can look at the scenery, you can look at the music, because now you've given it to the subconscious. The same thing happens with sports. For example, I played tennis. In the beginning, you take a tennis bat and you try to hit the ball, and the ball goes there, and you hit up there, and the ball goes here, and you hit here. And until they tell you, do this, do that, and it gets complicated, but after you know it, all of a sudden, you're playing matches, and tennis is fun, a lot of fun and all that, and there's a harmony in your body, you know, the motion. You're not hitting the ball, just hitting. It's your whole body and your whole soul moving into, and that's when you become an expert. That's when this rhythm, whether it's sports, music, and dance, this is what takes you out of the clock into the center. So you do that from time to time, and you take the stress out. A little activity here, a little activity there, will start minimizing the stress that you get from the clock. Now, perceived time versus reality of time. If what this time who was your foe or enemy or friend or whatever it is that real time? Now, unfortunately, when we speak about time in our reality, in our world of technology, we have to speak about the linear time that we spoke about, because our machines run by it and all that. So you have to master it. You can't just say, forget it. You wouldn't have modern technology if you do that. But all our theories, all our scientific theories about the reality of time are somehow still trapped in linear time. So somehow still trapped with a propagation of time. Time must be some form of propagation. It could start, time, a theory could say it starts with the Big Bang, that's the beginning of time, and then goes. But could there be something different? The ancient Egyptians spoke of septepi, that means the time before time. Well, how can there be time before time? So we start asking ourselves, now, is time a linear thing only if you have 5 working senses living in a sensory world? Okay, but if you're in a multidimensional world, you can't have linear time. It must be something multidimensional. So time must be there. Multidimensional means instead of one track like this, it is sort of a shining light in all directions, but not just in all directions, but in all dimensions. A light that goes through all dimensions. And then, when it shines, there is a sort of, if it keeps shining in one direction, you don't have duality. But creation depends on duality. So that means it will shine and then come back. Shine, there'll be a pulse. So the reality of time is a sort of a primordial pulse. So you should start looking at it differently than all the theories that we have about time. Time is the primordial pulse that governs everything in creation. We will go to that as we go along. But just to show you that there is real time, because our time here wouldn't work beyond the senses. And then all the theories you make about your time are completely different than the time of an insect, of a bacteria. So what are you doing? You think you discovered time? Well, the little bacterial scientist has his own theories about time. They're different than yours. And then the virus comes, no, time is not yours, time is different. So who's right? But they're all living in this reality, in this body. So what happens? They all have their own form of linear time because they live in my body. But innately they're governed by multidimensional time. But what they perceive is this linear time. So we should always know about what's perceived time. If you want to step on the other side, then you must know what's a reality of time. So it's an archetype in creation, and we're going to deal with it as we go along in many, many ways. Okay, so time is the living pulse of creation. That's the origin. Now, imagine the background, the cradle of creation. The background that you thought was void, invisible. Exactly like the background of you guys out there, the 5,000 people who are not with us here, you know. I think, because I don't see them here, they don't exist. Yeah, you're a void, guys. You're out there. You don't exist as far as we can say. Yeah, do they exist? Do you see them? It's Gaia telling us that there are 5,000 people out there. But I don't see 5,000 people out there. So you tell me what's out there, it's a void. Show me, but you can't show me, so it's a void. And that's what science did. It's a void, the background is void, but the cradle of civilization is a highly pulsating void. It's the highest form of energy. This void is actually life force. And this pulsating void means that a pulse through resonance of shape will resonate with all similar pulses, will create pulses from 0 to infinity, making myriads of pulses in the universe behave as one pulse. And so you are actually living in a universal unity of creation. So we have to, if we want to go understand what's happening on the outside, we have to understand the reality of time. And it's important because we will need it as we go ahead. Now, I see I only have about 2 minutes left. And Jen here comes out with the red thing, 2 minutes, you know? Yeah, she's like the captain with a stick here. Yeah. I have to blindfold her to have enough, blind, so that she doesn't. So I'm going on, and what I don't finish in this thing, I might take it into the next one. There's a fluid thing between the different sessions. So it goes back and forth. And there's one thing, from time to time, when I tell you anything, sometimes I will let you do something or an exercise or show something to give myself an excuse to go and sit and have a bit of this is my Earl Grey tea, you see. Earl Grey tea is the healthiest thing, that you can have. It's bergamot and tea. It's good for your veins, for cancer. It fights everything, arthritis. So from time to time, I won't just drink the tea. I'll be nice to you. I'll sit. So whenever I sit, you can stand. And whenever I stand, then you sit. So, because we'll be here for 2 days. So 2 days, some of you might get a bit uncomfortable sitting on certain parts of your body that get numb. And yes, and so you want to sort of move a bit. So instead of watching you as we go along, going like that in your seats all the time, so what I'll do, from time to time, I sit. The moment you see me sit, you stand. And then when I stand, you sit. Okay? So that's a good thing. So now, we said time is the living pulse of creation, and we said about that. So, actually, they're following me. So we'll stop here, and this pulse, torsion in this pulse, and I'll take it in the next session, and showing you that the pulse of creation, the pulse of time, is actually an emotional, mental pulse. It's the divine mind. It's the activity of the universal mind. So I'm going to go that, analyze it in detail. And so after the break, we will come back and analyze that in detail. Okay? Now you're free to go. Shall I let them open the doors or only the BG3 door? So I don't know if you're nice and let you go out through the door. Okay, otherwise, only up there. Thank you.